Brilliant. Are we good to go?
We are good to go.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Wilrieke. And hello, everybody watching this live and or on the recording or the replay. I feel a bit scattered now because I've shared it in various places and I've lost count of where we are. But anyway, I'm really, really glad and feeling yummy to record this interview slash conversation with a really awesome friend and colleague of mine, Wilrieke Sophia. So first of all, I'd love you to introduce yourself and then I'll introduce myself.
All right. So my name is Wilrieke Sophia, and as my name might suggest, I am Dutch. I live in the Netherlands, just outside of Amsterdam, and I call myself an intimacy activist, which basically means that in daily life, as a job, I support people to gain more confidence in love, sex, relationships, friendships, and all of that. And I do that through workshops, play parties, everything on the broad spectrum of intimacy, meaning from non-sexual cuddling to full-on play parties, kink, BDSM, tantra, neo-tantra, I should say. Eclectic neo-tantra is what I think I want to name it,
Yeah.
and everything in between. Yeah.
Thank you. It's also a really awesome distinction that we're saying the phrase neo tantra, especially as it relates to our conversation today, and there's more to explore. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
introduce myself. If you don't know me already, hi, I'm Lucy Rowett. As you can probably tell by my sexy British accent, I'm British and I live in Brighton in the United Kingdom. And I am a sexologist and intimacy coach. So, my specialty and my wonderful juju is helping women and people with vulvas to really let go of their sexual shame, release their inhibitions, so they can have the sex and pleasure and intimacy and juiciness that they really want without it feeling like a chore or a duty or a burden, especially if they come from a faith background or a conservative background. But also, if sex has just become a real chore and a duty in your life and not something that feels fun, where you can't stop freaking out and overthinking, and you've done a lot of therapy and coaching already, but you can't get into your body. So, I do this through one to one work, through my group work, The Shameless Woman, and also through various different workshops. I love to incorporate the world of exercises from Neo Tantra, from Taoism, and also sexology, evidence based sexuality education, embodiment, some ritual and holistic work, but also that I like to get that balance of mind and body, of evidence based versus woo and holistic ism. And
We're
then,
so on the same page with these things. I do the same thing. Like I combine like neuroscience with, prayer, or like plants
yeah,
from nettles, everything. Yeah, we totally meet there.
me and Vilrico, we've been on each other's, I don't know, spheres in the past few years, and we've definitely vibed a lot since the
Mm,
beginning of global shitstorm, i.e., pandemic. And there's many things many crossovers that we've had. And the essence of today's talk is kind of sharing a lot of our frustrations, our pain, our general frustrations at the world of sexual healing in terms of sacred sexuality, neo tantra, Taoism, conscious sexuality, and the ways in which things have gone and do go really badly wrong. And it's poignant to both of us because both of us, and I'm making a lot of generalizations here, but we've both experienced real wonderful healing experiences in the world of, I say sexual healing, if we can use that umbrella term, and we use it in our work. And yet we also see all the ways in which it goes wrong and it really hurts people. And especially since the pandemic, with the wellness, spirituality, conscious world becoming a little bit more crazy, a little bit more divided, a little bit more polarized. And also in the wake of many uh, gurus, coaches, teachers within sacred sexuality and sexual healing, just in itself, being outed for really unethical and predatory behavior. It's something that we wanted to talk about and explore as to how can we continue this body of work and keep all of the awesome goodness and also do better? And also, what can we spot? Is there anything you want to add to this, Ulrika?
Oh, you said it all. It's so necessary to start speaking about this. I think as the sexual how did you call it, sexual healing realms.
Sexual healing space.
Sexual
Yeah.
heal, yeah, sexual healing space. I think we are maturing as a community or as work sphere, and we are now at the point that ethics and accountability become more and more like it. We see how important really is. You know, if you compare it to psychology, for example, some
Yeah.
decades ago, it wasn't strange if your psychology would have sex with you or take you on a holiday or something like that. Like
Yeah.
100 years ago or less, that was normal, and that happens in our spheres right now, like with the
Mm.
psychology or where the doctor would say, no, that's absolutely rubbish. You cannot
Yeah.
do that. It's
Yeah.
unheard of. And we are now coming to a point where it's becoming more obvious that that's the direction we might need to go in, where
Yeah.
ethics and awareness on power dynamics and such are um, important. And I don't know how it's for you, Lucy, but since I've been speaking up about this topic, like so many stories come my way. So it's
Yeah.
not just the stories of my own
Yep.
experience with the people
Yep.
around me,
God,
but
yes.
from all over the world, like weekly, if not daily, there are stories coming my way that just show how important it is that we actually start talking about this.
And it's, I know, I completely agree. And it's been a conversation the past few years. And it's, I remember having this conversation when B. Schofield first published, I think it's her work around on Guru Mag and outing a lot of, I say, gurus and spiritual
Hmm.
teachers, a lot of them from the sexuality realm, a lot of them that people and teachers that we know. And I remember having this conversation in my group of Brighton sexuality professionals and this real dilemma we felt. And I remember some people saying that because the world of sacred sexuality and sexual healing, it is so new. I mean, even the world of psychology is new, but sacred sexuality, neo tantra, that's even newer in terms of the way that it's practiced today, in terms of the workshop retreat leadership style, and it has its roots in various places, not necessarily in the East, but actually in the USA and the UK. And while we needed that innovation in order to, because, traditional psychotherapy and sex therapy has a lot of benefits, and yet there were limitations. And we needed that innovation. We needed people to kind of break the boundaries, break the box, so to speak.
Hmm.
And yet people still get hurt. And I also hear stories. And funnily enough, I remember when I was really kind of very new and very green to all of this world a few years ago, a friend of mine who's a sex therapist, he was listing off all of these teachers that I was idolizing, saying, yep, he has sex with his clients, he has sex with his clients. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
and as I've journeyed myself, I see more. And another reason I wanted to bring a few other reasons. First of all, is that Ulrika and is it Rupert Allen?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
you created this
Rupert Allison. Rupert
I'm
James
sorry, Rupert
Allison.
Allison, you created this
Yeah.
really awesome checklist of basically red flags and green flags to look out for. And other people have
Yeah.
been creating these as well, because I feel that this conversation is one of many that's happening in
Yeah.
terms of, you could say, a reckoning or a call for accountability in the sexuality healing space. That while a lot of practices are amazing and are transformational and can get people much further than traditional talk therapy, boundaries get crossed and real horrible
Hmm.
things happen. And people in positions of power are effectively kept there because of their capital, because of their adoring followers,
Yeah.
because the money that they have to pay for litigation,
And the people they work with.
and the
Like,
people they work
yeah.
with. And it's also a frustration for me and for
Hmm.
my colleagues, where I have clients who approach me, or either clients who work with me or potential clients, and they tell me stories of past practitioners. And I'm thinking,
Hmm. Yeah.
oh my God, no, 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 no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. So
Yeah.
is there anything you want to add to that before I move on?
Yeah, well, I think we're speaking about the need of accountability, and also the exposés, like the stories coming to the surface. And I think what we're doing here now, and what Rupert and I also did with this brochure, and what other people are doing now too, is it's like more like a bottom-up approach. We have the
Mm,
top-down approach where we can call out people, or where we can hold them accountable. And at the same time, we can have this bottom-up approach where we inform people who are participants, who are going to
yeah.
these workshops and these retreats and these sessions, to let them know what's actually normal and what's actually not normal,
Mm,
what's boundary crossing. So they are more informed and hopefully at least a little bit better capable of saying no, of understanding what's going on and that it's not okay, so
Yeah.
that they can say no.
And to basically spot bullshit if they see it,
Yeah,
or have a
yeah,
better bullshit filter.
oh yeah,
Because,
totally.
and
There's a lot
this,
of bullshit going on here.
there's a lot. And we also want to preface this conversation that we don't want to set ourselves up as like the paragon of we know
Oh no.
everything. We're doing everything ethically, everyone else, terrible people. Because that's
Yeah.
not that's completely, we are still humans learning this.
Yeah.
And it's, I say, an ongoing conversation, in that I don't believe that publicly saying that you're doing it wrong is going to help us. I believe the majority of us in the sexual healing world, we really want to do good and we want to help
Mm,
our clients. And we've all what's the word, inevitably, unconsciously caused harm,
yeah.
but we can do better. And I know that I will inevitably fuck up again at some point, but I hope that
Yeah.
I will have the wherewithal to make amends. So we want this to be a conversation rather than hire us and everybody else's crap.
Yeah,
Does that make
absolutely.
sense?
Absolutely. Yes, we're still learning, we're still making mistakes. And yeah, I knew for myself, I happily share about all of that so that we can grow together. So, yes, if
Yeah.
anybody is watching this and thinks like they know it all, no, we don't.
No. And
We-
oh, yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, I was just saying, yes, we've been studying this a lot and we've been talking about this so much, but it doesn't mean we know it all.
No. And anybody who claims to be an expert,
That's a big red flag.
red flag. I should have brought, I wish I had some like red flags, green flags there.
You're
Really
wearing
big.
it. You're
I
wearing
know.
it.
Red. So, and also, if you are working in the sexual healing space, I would love you to drop us a comment with any suggestions that you have, or any anecdotes as well. If there's anything that we've missed, or anything that we have not talked about in detail enough, we will read them out. Because what Vilrika was saying, it's a top down and bottom up approach. And I remember something I think Kian de la Cour from ACES was telling me, is that it's moving away from this guru mentality in terms of working in the healing space, where it's guru. So just say guru mentality, where like me as the guru or you as the guru, where this person knows best and everybody else is following. And the world of personal development as a whole is moving away from that. So I want to keep that uh, energy of this space.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just trying to reply to a comment where this important checklist is.
Yeah.
And I'll post a link.
Well, should we do that at the end?
Yeah, we can
We
do
can
that
do
at the
that
end.
at the end. So at
Yeah,
the end
let's do that at the end.
we'll post all the links. It's just so, because
Absolutely.
I know it's really
Yeah.
easy when people are posting comments. It's like, oh, I need to reply to that.
Yeah.
We
Sure.
will read the comments and we may respond to them at the end. Just know that we are two people doing this. We don't have any assistants behind the scenes.
No.
So we're both the DJ and the tech person. So we've got, where is my email? Bloody closed it, didn't I? Because when we were preparing this, I have a list of talking points so that none of us, we don't go off topic too much. I'm just going to open it up because I closed it. And first of all, I would love to talk about why we need to have ethics and standards, ethics and boundaries in the sexual healing space
Mm.
anyway, and what do they even mean? So you want to start, Ulrika?
Yeah, I think we talked about it like the point I mentioned before about maturing as a scene. I think it's time. It's time.
Yeah,
So it's, we need this because things are going wrong and people get hurt, and that's not okay. So that's why
yeah,
we need it. We also need it because, in my perspective, like working with intimacy and sexuality, that is, I don't know what comes closer to our trauma and our deepest pains and
yeah.
fears and limiting beliefs. So the risk of healing is big, but the
Mm,
risk of hurting is also really big.
yeah.
So yeah, I think we need that empowerment and that, yeah, protection. I'm not sure
Protection.
protection is the right word, but yeah, accountability, more safety, more, yeah, we need those ethics. We need some standards to reduce the risks, because there's too much going wrong.
Yeah, and I like what you say there, because it's that constant dance that any healing modality has. How much is too much boundaries? How much is too much regulation? Where you are creating, where you're completely trying to eliminate risk where nothing can happen. And I really see the point of that, in that, especially in sexuality work, sometimes we do have to go to the edge. Sometimes we have to dance on the edge to really have that healing. And I see this, and this is why a lot of people, I say, in the coaching, entrepreneurship, and spirituality space, they've had to break out of those boxes in order to do the amazing work they do. But as is inevitable, people get hurt, and people have been
Yeah.
getting hurt. And a lot of us are saying there has to be a better way of doing this, a way of
Hmm.
honoring where we've come from, but also realizing you can have the best intentions in the world, and you can be the most spiritually enlightened person in the world. You can have years of experience facilitating. You could have written books. You could be seen as an authority in your field. That does not stop you from causing real damage to people,
Hmm.
which,
Hmm.
it's almost, there is a body count, so to speak. Literally,
Yeah.
metaphorically and physically, there is a body count, and we're not going to
Yeah,
name,
totally.
yeah, we're not
Yeah,
going to
totally. I mean,
name, yeah,
it goes up to people committing suicide over being so traumatized in workshops or
yeah,
schools, or,
mystery schools.
mystery schools or other kinds of schools. It's real. It happens. It's
Yeah,
not just something that we come up with. And it's
no,
what you say. Like, I'm gonna mess up our chronologically order of our bullet points a little. It's what you say. Like,
it's terrible.
there are people who are doing on purpose, are causing harm on purpose
Mm,
because they have a need for their personal satisfaction. They want to groom sexy students. There's people who do that on intention.
yeah,
But there is also harm caused by people who have no idea that they're causing harm, who are not trauma informed, who have no idea that they're breaching consent. And this, what we are doing, is also to create awareness on where do you actually cause harm, so
yeah,
that we can all do our self-reflection. Or I hope everyone who is a facilitator or leader in this field has their supervision and their intervision, so that they can reflect with others, with themselves, and actually understand and learn
yeah.
how to be better.
And I really agree with this, because there's often this dichotomy that the people causing harm are like, we've seen in the documentaries on Netflix, like about, the guy from Bikram Yoga, and from
Oh
various
gosh,
cults,
yeah.
where you have these very predatory, often male teachers, not always, who are deliberately doing this. And that's a big problem. And yet there's
Yeah.
a big grey zone as well, where a lot of facilitators with the best of intentions are often doing what they were trained to do from their mystery school and lineage. And they are often in the echo chamber with other people of the same mindset. And they end up perpetuating and teaching, often from the best of intentions. And it's something that I see in the coaching conscious entrepreneurship world in general, this idea of complete radical self responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
where any suffering that you have is completely on you. And they use a lot of spiritual bypassing language, that anything that you are suffering with, that's all your stuff, nothing to do
Yeah.
with me. And that is a big problem because
Yeah.
it's almost like I see in the conscious spiritual sacred sexuality world, it's almost like they get so up into the ether of spirituality that they lose complete context of
Yeah.
the human condition.
Totally. Yeah, I've had an experience like that too, in a school with they called themselves a sort of a tantra school, but it definitely wasn't. It was very sexual,
Mm,
and every time someone had a fear or trauma surfacing, or just didn't like a certain thing, wouldn't have sex with a certain person, they would say, "You're contracted. This is
yeah,
your fear. You need to work on that." They would never support, they would never hold and say, "I
no,
understand." They would always say, "It's your problem." And it's like, this is an extreme example, and it happens in more subtle ways, like you say,
yeah,
like it's, or versions like, "Oh, the universe is creating the perfect circumstances for you to do your healing, so go
yeah.
through it, you know
Or you're in
um
resistance. That's
yes,
why. And
yes.
in order to break this resistance, you must commit even harder to the process.
Yep. This
And
is divine intervention.
oh, yeah. And it's, it can happen in like workshop and retreat spaces. And
Yeah.
something to remember is that when we are doing sexuality work or sacred sexuality work, we are in a different state of, I say, consciousness. And I don't mean
Our
that in a
brain
spirit.
works different.
Our
It's,
brain
it's,
is,
it's
yeah,
yeah,
we are in, I don't mean that in a spiritual woo woo turn. I mean, we are
yeah,
in a different brain state.
yeah,
We are in a highly vulnerable, a highly activated state, because often they are working people into highly activated states through breath work and meditation and movement, which it can be brilliant to facilitate transformation. But then you are also
yeah,
highly vulnerable.
yeah,
And if you then add in the erotic and sexual context as well, especially if there's nudity and genital contact, and even without that, you are much more susceptible to not able to set your
yeah,
boundaries. And you're in, I say, a different state of consciousness. You will not be making the same choices that you would make if you weren't. And this is where things can go really wrong. And without
yeah,
that
yeah.
awareness to say, well, they were a consenting adult, well, in that moment, no.
I just want to like if you're watching the recording, like rewind 30 seconds and listen to that again. Like
Yeah.
this is such an important part. This is such an important piece. And you know what I like to add is when I have people coming over, when people ask me about it, like it's like we have our comfort zone, and when you go far out of that, it's you have the learning zone and then you go into trauma zone. But
Mm,
what happens, like when I was a young facilitator, I would see my success in how much emotional releases people would have and how much they would be in all the exercises. So
yeah.
I'm so glad I dropped that, because that's not a good way to facilitate. Like
Yeah.
definitely let go of the outcome. That's my suggestion to all facilitators:
Yeah.
let go of the outcome. But what happens when you put people far outside of their comfort zone, which can be through that breath work, which can be through exercises, which can be through emotional release, when you do all these very intense, long, active meditations, for example, of pillow bashing or
Yeah.
pillow thumping or whatever, you can come into trauma zone. It might be too overwhelming what's happening,
Hmm.
and your emotions might be super, I would say, loud. Like lots of
Yeah.
decibels, like very loud. And your nervous system is basically going into, a fight, flight, like this very active response.
And
Um,
yes, it can feel like euphoria.
that's my point. Like it can feel like a euphoria, but it also can be you're in such a survival mode that once you come back, this is my experience. When
Yeah.
you come back, my nervous system goes into a big party, and my nervous system is basically saying, "Yay, I survived this! Yay,
Yeah.
I survived!" And the next time I'm coming into a similar exercise or a similar circumstance, could be with my friends or whatever, my response is more extreme.
Yeah.
So it means that I'm not learning anything. I haven't healed any trauma. It may look like it because I have this big catharsis,
Mm.
and then I have this euphoria, which from an outside point of view can look like a big success. Remember the young facilitator, it can look like
Yeah.
a big success, but I might just have re-traumatized someone.
Yeah. And also, they talk about the come down. In BDSM, you can say sub drop, but this
Hmm.
experience also exists in sacred sexuality, the drop.
Yeah.
And
It exists in any workshop,
it
right?
exists, and it's
Yeah,
inevitable. And
yeah,
yet, often there's no, say, training. There's no real preparation for the participants on how to land safely.
yeah.
So I remember when I did a trauma awareness training with Catherine Hale, she was the first facilitator to say, when we finish, don't make any big decisions for 2 weeks. I
Great.
wish I had been told that. And also, I remember other people telling me that you can become hooked. I don't like that term.
Yeah.
But because of the euphoria that you
Hmm.
experience in a workshop or retreat, which is amazing, you then end up getting hooked on that cycle of
Yeah, yeah,
workshops
yeah.
and retreats.
Workshops can be an addiction.
They can be. I
Yeah.
want to, I think this, I want to move on to something else now.
Yes.
I think I would love
Yes.
to
Yes.
talk about the subtlety of power dynamics and how
Yeah.
easy it is to get re traumatized, even when the teacher is approachable or doesn't
Hmm.
dress like a guru, even when they say, this is a democracy.
Yeah.
I just said that at the beginning of this, but I really want to talk about power dynamics and what
Yeah.
happens, especially in the sexuality realm.
Yeah. 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 It's so important. Yeah. Like as a facilitator, especially if you don't think you are, you have a position of power. Even like I tell my people in my team, I say, as soon as you're pouring tea for others, you have a power position because
Mm,
people see you as being part of the team, and it does something to your
mm,
to the hierarchy of social status in that room in that moment. And I've seen plenty of facilitators who say, like, I am on equal level with my participants, or they say, now is the workshop. After the workshop, there's a play party. As soon as the closing circle is done, I'm one of you. And then I
mm.
say, well, what would you do if Madonna would come to the crowd after a concert? Is she one of you, or would you treat her differently in any way?
No,
Um,
exactly.
we're
No,
always in that position of power. And someone taught me, as a facilitator, this was also comes from King, as the facilitator, as the person in power, you, like, the participant has 100% responsibility for their well-being, but we have 200%
yeah,
responsibility for ourselves and for them. Because as a participant, and I've been this participant many times, we have our blind spots. Most of us, most of the people who are drawn to workshops in this realm, they have trauma. They have issues with their parents in the past or with other people in power in the past. Like,
yeah.
honestly, the people who have no issues, they don't come to our workshops.
No,
Like,
and
honestly, they're
I
not.
and also when we're talking about trauma, there can be this dismissal of trauma only means PTSD and therefore it needs specific trauma therapy. Yes and
Oh.
no. Actually, trauma exists on a big macro and a micro level. And as you said,
Yeah.
people don't tend to do this work without serious stuff having happened, whether it's, whether it's a sliding scale from serious abuse to general parental misattunement and literally everything in between.
Yeah.
And, it's well documented the power dynamic, especially if a teacher is a male. And
Yeah.
often sacred sexuality tends to be more female dominated in that it tends to be a
Yeah.
lot of women. Teachers, it depends. But it doesn't matter how spiritual or enlightened the teacher believes they are or says they are. I remember watching a video by Layla Martin when she was talking about her experience at Agama Yoga. She said,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter how spiritually advanced somebody is, it doesn't mean they are emotionally or psychologically developed or integrated. And I think we
Yeah.
really, really have to remember that
A really good point.
because, yes, somebody could have all these spiritual powers, probably is true. It doesn't mean they are psychologically or
Yeah.
emotionally healthy or have that awareness. And again, it's that other
Yeah.
thing of guru mentality, and it exists especially with male facilitators. And also, I don't want to say all male facilitators are bad, but it is a very common phenomena where you have a male
Yeah.
facilitator who is teaching and there are very vulnerable women. I say that I've been one of those where I've been in
Mm-hmm.
that crowd. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
pick me, and it's like
Yeah.
that, the Madonna or the like male pop star um
Mm-hmm.
or thing where, oh, pick me, oh my god, you picked me,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, I'm chosen. And
Yeah.
even though you may consent to something, you can't ignore that power dynamic. I
Yeah, it's what
remember,
you say.
yeah,
You are in a different brain state, plus you have your blind spot. Both have blind spots, obviously, but yeah.
it does, and it again, I hear this so often where, when people are either facilitating or helping the facilitator, then the boundaries become so blurred
Yeah.
because you can be helping a facilitator and suddenly you slip into the workshop. And then what happens is it becomes really murky, especially when you find an erotic connection with somebody in the workshop, but then you're also a facilitator, but not.
Yeah.
And I remember reading one of the articles by B. Schofield about
Mm-hmm.
one prominent Tantra teacher, and he was quoted as saying, when I was teaching lots of workshops and retreats, I was living like a monk while I was here. I was teaching people to have amazing sex, and yet here's me living like a monk in my bedroom, and I didn't think that was fair. And that was why he justified then having sex with people on his retreats and things.
Yeah.
And my thing was then have a life, you know,
Yeah, you know
get
what?
a life
It's so
outside of
simple for
tantra.
me.
Yeah,
It's so simple for me. Like, yes, if you, to everyone who thinks they want to be an intimacy facilitator or coach, this is the first question to ask yourself. Are you willing to let go of 90% of your dating pool? Maybe 99% of your dating pool. If you're not willing to do that, stay a participant. Don't try. Don't do, just don't do
exactly.
it.
No,
For me, it's
exactly.
super simple. There's an exchange. I offer a service, and in exchange I get money. That's it. You know, yes, I feel good because I love this. This is my calling. This is my purpose on earth. Yes, that's a bonus. But the exchange is I offer my time, and in return I get paid.
Yeah,
That's it. I'm not getting paid in attention. I'm not getting paid in sex. I'm not getting paid in, anything else. This
yeah,
is it. This is it. And yes, I find my dates elsewhere. And yes, 99% it's shitty because, when I go on the dating apps, I like the people who have some experience in, kink and tantra and
yeah,
such. So most don't, so I don't like them. And the ones that do, they know my face. So
yeah.
too
It's
bad. So, but yeah, that's the deal. We
well,
need to find our nourishment elsewhere, not in our sessions, not in our workshops.
and it's so easy to fall into that. And especially when you become and you are very well known, in that
Yeah,
it's inevitable that people know who you are. And I don't have a clean cut answer for that, but you have to be aware of that.
yeah,
And it's, I guess that's my own personal opinion, that we need to be well-rounded human beings
yeah,
outside of our work. And often when we are in the spirituality world and sexual healing world, it can become our whole world, which is
yeah,
understandable. But then it's really essential for our emotional and psychological health, and actually the well-being of our clients, to have a life outside of our work.
yeah, totally.
Because yeah, so
Yeah.
I think now I feel like doing like a quick fire round of, like, I say, red flags and green flags. Red
Do you want some
flags,
red flags and green
red
flags?
flags and green flags to watch for, especially for the consumer. So this is for
Yeah,
somebody who is looking to attend a workshop, to attend a retreat, or to go for a
yeah,
session with a practitioner. And I'll see if I can find a way to cut this, because I feel like I want to send this to so many people. And as a disclaimer, think of this as a rough guide rather than if this specific language is there or not, where not there, then
yeah,
that's it. But these are common red and green flags that you and I have seen. And also, I feel like
yeah.
even buzzwords.
Yeah, and I will put a link to the brochure I made for Throughput at the end because there's a whole bunch of red, orange, yellow, and green flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, a huge one. Of course, a huge one is when you type their name into the browser and you get a whole bunch of serious accusations and mixed messages. So if you want to go somewhere, just Google them. Just Google them
Yeah.
and ask people who are not their students anymore.
Yeah.
Not the current students, because they might be like all in the pink cloud of how amazing this person is, but ask the people who are not their students anymore and see what they say.
Yeah. Because yeah, there are so many teachers I know.
Yeah,
It seems it's a common phenomenon where they burn through their students and facilitators, where you can become very enamored with them, and then they eventually screw them over one way or another. So maybe
yeah,
wait a few years. Well, yeah, go
yeah.
on.
And another huge one to me is mystery. The word mystery, but or mystery school or such things, but also when they are mysterious about what's going to happen in the workshop, that it's maybe they present it as something ancient or something that
Oh
it
God.
should be sacred or secret because of whatever. Um, so you have no idea what you're signing up for. So you
Yeah.
cannot know what's going to happen until you're in the middle of it. And as we said, with the different brain working, it's really hard to have your boundaries. So make sure that you know if something is sexy, sexual or not, or kinky or not, or some brain altering substances or not. Like, what are you actually going to do? So
Yeah.
mystery is a huge red flag.
I would also add that, especially with sexuality work, my thing is, if they, my personal line is, they need to state whether there will be nudity or not.
Yeah,
And I think if there's no mention of nudity either way, either there will be no nudity, or there will be, or maybe nudity, or nudity optional.
or
That
partial nudity.
or partial nudity, for me, that's another red or
Yeah,
orange flag, because that means that it could be sprung on you
yeah.
surprisingly. And
Ah, yeah,
as we said, because you're already in a vulnerable state, and not to mention, there's that war, the people pleasing comes up. You don't want to be a
yeah,
bad student, and maybe you paid a substantial amount of money for this. You want to get your
yeah.
money's worth. So again, and also I agree with the mystery, and I agree
Mm,
that something it's that balance between you may want to keep some exercises, the details of them. You may not want to reveal them straight
Of
away,
course. Yeah, of
but
course.
there needs to be an outline or some
Yeah.
sort of some sort of the basics. There will be nudity. There may not be
Yeah.
nudity. There may be genital touch. There be not be, but there will be breath work. There will be movement. There will be eye gazing or
Mm.
something, especially with breath work, because I personally cannot do a lot of breath work. I find it way too
Mm-hmm.
activating for my system. And if people spring breath work on me without warning me, I get really pissed off. Basically, I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah. Or if you are, if you have trauma, you might go into a freeze response and, it happens to you, even if you don't want it to happen to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But carry on with
Yeah,
the list.
so yeah, it's a huge list. So this is just a few that we're going to mention, unless we want to be here for another week. But so just a few. So what you already kind of mentioned, to me, pushing and
Yeah.
pushing it can be in different things. So this is one for when you're in a workshop and you're sitting on the side because you don't want to do an exercise, and even if an assistant comes to you to ask why are you not in an exercise, is already, I wouldn't say a red flag, but it's a flag. It's like,
Mm,
there's a like, not said directly, but there's a certain pushing in it,
yeah.
of you have to be in an exercise. There are also cases known where in certain schools you would have to leave the hall, like a broad retreat of weeks. If you wouldn't do an exercise, you would have to leave the whole thing. So you were forced to do an exercise. Any way that, like, I would say the opposite, a green flag would be where a facilitator throughout the workshop mentions you don't have to do this. There's an opt
Yeah.
out, is what I call it. There's
Yeah.
always a way to not do it. There's
Yeah.
even a dedicated area for not
Yeah.
doing it. It's
That's
like,
a major green flag. There's
yeah,
a
huge pot of tea in the corner and chocolate. Like, if you want to sit there, it's like, watching is perfect, participation, that kind of, that's the opposite of it.
I like this, like I say, a hiding spot, or but also
Yeah,
just even a mat in the corner where
yeah.
that is the no. I've heard this. It's the no play mat
Yeah.
where
I think
that.
you've heard it from, maybe I don't know. I always have in my workshops something called the introvert corner, aka the non-engagement zone.
Yeah.
So it's the same blanket I drag to every workshop that I give. People know it by now. It's always there, and even you can be anywhere. So it's
Yeah.
very clear that you don't have to be in anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I want to add another green flag. It's when you are allowed to leave. What's it? I think it's one thing if somebody comes up to check on you, absolutely, are you okay? But
yeah,
then it becomes, why don't you join in?
yeah.
Again,
It's a thin line, but there is a line.
it's a thin
Yeah,
line. It's not always clear cut. It's not always going to be if they say this word it's bad, if this word is
yeah.
good. But it's an energy. Carry
But
on.
this is why we as facilitators need to be trauma informed and informed of consent and all these things, so that we know the wording that we choose has huge impact.
Yeah.
Like, even, are you sad, or what's up,
Mm,
or how you doing, or can I do something for you? They all are different and have a different impact on someone.
yeah.
Yeah. So another huge red flag is, when a facilitator, when they overpromise, or when they say, for example, with this 1 day workshop, I will change your whole life. Or, this is and this is another one that literally has happened. I'm sorry. Where in this case it's a male facilitator who would say to a student, "My cock has specific powers. If I have sex with you, you'll be enlightened."
Oh yeah, and I'm laughing because
Yeah,
it
it's
feels
horrible.
isn't when I'm laughing at this, it's more the oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah, yeah,
And yet it's interesting because as we're saying this now to, and maybe if you're watching you're thinking, oh god, that's ridiculous, but yet when you're in that kind of setting where you're already following this teacher, where you've
yeah,
already had breakthroughs, where you've already really resonated with their work, where you've had a lot of your own personal experience, it then is pretty plausible to
yeah.
then add that on, especially with the spirituality. And something I want to add here is that I see a massive red flag whenever people say this is an ancient practice,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not. Nothing is an ancient practice. And even yoga, and I say that because yoga and tantra, there's a lot of what they call Orientalism.
Hmm.
and fetishization of the East, which is in all spiritual practices, where anything from the East is therefore superior and enlightened and wonderful. But actually, no, the yoga and the tantra that we practice in the West is nothing to do with what was originally practiced. In that the original tantra, nobody can really agree on how it started or where it started, and most of it was oral tradition. And actually, a lot of the tantra that exists in India and Tibet, again, there's a divide of where it originally came from. It had nothing to do with sex, or very little to do with sex, or it was like a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. And also, a lot of the tantra gurus from India, just because they were from India, it doesn't mean they were good people. They weren't causing harm. They were probably a lot of them were doing really shitty, horrible behavior.
Yeah, and isn't most of what we consider yoga massively influenced by the Russian army?
And it's like there's been a really wonderful book called Yoni Shakti. I think that's the word, the name. It was a book written by, is it Yoni Shakti or something? It's a book written by a woman who is basically talking about how to practice yoga safely,
Mm,
transforming the practice of yoga and sacred sexuality arts. I'm saying the word yoga, sacred sexuality, there's so many crossovers. But again, because the world of yoga tantra is having a reckoning. But again, anytime they say this is an ancient practice,
yeah.
bullshit. It's not. It's been brought to the West and changed a lot. Carry
I
on.
have another
You're
one. Yeah, I have another one that I really wanna mention. So this is about when teachers talk about their past in their bio or in a workshop, and when they say something which sounds like a scripted story that says something in the lines of, "In my past, I did all this bad stuff," and then this whole story comes, "but now I am completely reformed, and therefore you can trust me."
Oh God.
That's actually the start of a grooming process. Yeah.
Yeah. I think to add on to that, it's making these really outlandish promises that by
Yeah.
working with me, you will heal all your trauma, you will get rich, you will clear your ancestral karma. And
Yeah.
often they will either make these outlandish claims in their website, in their workshops, and their website will be full of glowing testimonials. And a lot
Yeah.
of them probably are real, but they're not. That's just a tiny snapshot. um it's when I have, yeah, that for me is a massive glaring red flag.
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so much. There's another one on teachers, for example, saying, this is also huge flag. "We are all consenting adults here." So
Oh,
people are actually deciding for you what's your consent. Or when they say something like, "Only man abuse, so you shouldn't question anything if the teacher is a woman."
that okay, that's really interesting. Oh, yes,
You get
yes.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm aware that in our conversation we've talked uh in what's the word, in passing, about predatory male facilitators,
Yeah.
but yet there are so many predatory female facilitators.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
easy to fall into that binary of all female facilitators are by default safe.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Mm-mm. No, and close to this, when things like what is it, sexism? Sometimes I have to think because I'm not a native English speaker. Sexism or racism or discrimination or conspiracy theories, which
Oh
is
God.
another one that I've seen popping up in certain schools lately. When those things are part of a teaching,
Yeah.
these are basically also the same things as that would pinpoint a cult. Like it's pretty much the same
It's cult
kind of dynamics.
dynamics.
It's, yeah, totally. Much of these many of these red flags are actually very closely linked to cult dynamics. Sometimes there's a teacher saying, "The world operates on this frequency of I don't know what G, but I am on 9G, and
Oh
so
yeah.
just being in my presence will bring you a raise in your vibration."
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. It happens all
Yeah. And
the time.
yeah, and it's I've seen this so much. It's this
Yeah.
elevation that I'm just operating on a different frequency to you. So if you are not understanding my work, you're just not at that frequency. So it's basically saying, yeah, you're just on a low frequency. It's your fault because you're just a human.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
totally undermining your self, your what's the word? Oh, autonomy.
autonomy. Yeah, and
Undermine,
it's
yeah, and your consent and your boundaries, like it's undermining it all.
no, no, I completely agree. And there was something that you said there when my brain is we're gonna wrap this up in about 10 minutes because we both have an energy limit where our
Yeah.
brains
Oh, I'm
stop.
getting all riled up. I could go for
Okay, I
hours.
I could probably go as long as you're okay. I'm aware that I get a lot of brain farts, which is
Yeah, well,
also
let's
in.
aim for another 10 minutes and then wrap it up.
I think it's one thing that I see again. It's that I say spiritualization of a lot of work, and again,
Yeah,
I am a spiritual person, so to speak, and so are you, I guess.
yeah,
But
yeah,
there's a lot of mythology in it. Like I remember someone saying about one particular tantra school where we're channeling like the archetype of the sexual dragon through this, and sometimes metaphor can be really helpful. But it was
yeah,
almost like by doing this it's to be frank, sometimes I see people are so off in the 5D or whatever that they are not here in reality.
yeah.
And it's I can't remember where I'm going this. Do you want to say something else before I try and figure out what I'm trying to say with this?
Yeah, well, no, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
another one.
yeah, go
Having
for it.
there was one very well-known sexuality teacher who, anytime people would question her, because this is a woman, she would say, "You're underfucked." Basically, you're just not having the right sex.
Ouch.
You're criticizing me because you're sexually frustrated and you're
Yeah,
underfucked. And
yep,
I would say a red flag that I see is this dogma of my way is the only way, and that is that. And
yeah,
if it doesn't work for you, you're not trying hard enough, and it's your fault.
yeah. Yeah, another, totally, like totally. Oh, and I've seen this and I've heard of this so many times as well. Another one is when, if you look at the team around a facilitator, when it's only young, attractive individuals who do not seem very skilled at their task.
Oh God.
This is not a joke. This is happening many times.
Especially when they are. So there's a particular tantra school that I know of where
Hmm.
at their festivals, all the helpers were young, attractive women
Yeah,
dressed in skimpy dresses. I'm not against being young and attractive in skimpy dresses, but this was a sexuality festival. And all of the helpers were young, sexy women, a lot of them Eastern European. So, kind of adding that kind of
yeah,
fetishization that, oh, if you join our school, you'll be enlightened and sexy. Ooh. And it
yeah,
just felt really off, really
yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah. And linked to that, if you see the facilitator during the workshop making a certain person special,
Mm.
especially when it's a young and attractive person, that's a huge flag.
Yeah, and I've seen this. And another
Oh
flag is,
gosh, so
oh
many
God,
times.
and another flag is if you are on a residential retreat or even a non-residential one, if the facilitator is sexually involved with one or more of the participants.
Oh gosh, I didn't even come up to mention that because
No,
it should be so obvious, but it happens so often that
no.
facilitators, yeah, yeah,
And the
yeah,
thing is, as we're saying this, if you're watching this thinking, "Oh my God, that's ridiculous," but when you're in that environment already, when you're already amped up, because when we're doing sexuality work, we often have to bounce our boundaries. We have to challenge our limiting beliefs. We have to, by the nature of the work, it's quite transgressive.
yeah,
So, but where is that line between, okay, I'm opening up my mind to, whoa, no, that's not okay? And we're still learning. So I remember one retreat I was on, the teacher, so many red flags. And he was, as part of his healing work, having sex with and engaging erotically with the women, both in the exercises and also in the play parties
mm,
afterwards. But it was a residential retreat in that we were all in the same space. So again, the boundaries are so blurred, and we'd see him taking the women to his room, having sex with them. And yes, it was meant to be about opening up and opening your boundaries, but I see this real kind of and I think you agree with this, in the sacred sexuality and sex positive space, that any kind of boundaries means you are not open minded. In order to be open minded, it means you
Hmm.
must have no boundaries.
That's this exact thing. In open to be open-minded, you need to have no boundaries. Like this is such a myth. This
Yeah,
is such a myth and one that is used a lot, and it's such bullshit. I
absolute
think
bullshit.
in order to be open-minded, you have to be very clear on your boundaries. And these spaces that we are talking about now, I believe they should be designed to actually have immaculate relationships to your boundaries, and where facilitators set the space up as a laboratorium where you can practice them, where you can make mistakes, but that's where the team is for. They can support you and give you a hug, and hold you if you want that, and
Mm,
support you and do things different in the next round, and then to do it again and again and again, because that's how we change our brains and how we come out of this loop of trauma is by doing things different and then repeat it again and again. That's how the brain new neurological pathways come into existence.
yeah.
So that's what we should create, not make it worse and do it again, where the facilitator is, yeah, it's ah.
It's you can probably hear both of us going, "Oh my God," and but also a lot of it comes from grief. Certainly
Yeah.
for my part, where grief at what we've experienced, grief at that kind of, there is so much potential here, and seeing it go so badly wrong. I was saying
Mhm.
to a few colleagues that, I don't think it's a good outcome of a session where you're not assaulted.
Yeah.
It's, and
Yeah.
that's not an ideal
Yeah.
outcome, where you
No.
go you go to a facilitator for a healing session, and the outcome, the positive, is that you're not assaulted, but there might be a risk there. And this happens so often. And there's probably another video we should make about specific one-to-one work, especially
Hmm.
when it involves working on the body with touch. And this is why
Yeah.
we have this body of work called sexological body work and somatic sex education, where they are trained to work on the body, but actually 80% of the work isn't on the body. This
Yeah.
is probably a very gross generalization, but most of the work is actually helping the client manage their own boundaries, and you managing your own boundaries.
Yeah. And
Because
within a clear container, I think that's
yeah,
that's the thing we need in all these spaces is a clear container. Like I know in this education that you bring up now, the facilitator is always clothed and it's always one direction touch.
mm,
So not as so it's very clear container. If you want to go to two direction touch, there's this whole beautiful work by Betty Martin called The Will of Consent, which
yeah,
is another beautiful container where it's very clear what the interaction is. And so you can be a practitioner where you have an exchange of touch, but within a very clear container.
yeah,
And there's even, very great sex workers where there's actually
yeah,
professional sexuality involved. But then that's a very clear container. So none of the mystery that we talked about.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So
oh, sorry.
before we wrap up, I want to, there's something that I feel stirring in my stomach that I want to bring in before we think of wrapping this up, because it might be that you're watching this and listening to this, and you're like, holy shit, I've had that experience. Like, I've been in this. I've had people telling me this. I've had experiences that when I came home, I felt shit. I felt like my boundaries were crossed.
Mm,
And maybe there's no way for you to, maybe you don't know where to go. Maybe you don't know what you can do. Um, there are things you can do.
mm,
I actually want to really dedicate part of my time to voluntary work. I call this, and make a really good outline of this. But until then, in that brochure that we linked to, there are some sources in the end. I'm open to people reaching out to me. Maybe you are too, Lucy. I don't know. Like, we are limited in our capacities
yeah.
probably, and
No,
limited in what we can do.
there is I well, there's I am limited in what I can do, but I also welcome hearing where your boundaries have been crossed. And again, there are places, there are resources I can signpost you to.
Yeah,
In that, um something is coming up, is that when you have had a really shitty experience in a session or a workshop or a retreat, I think there are certain processes that we need to go through, especially to get over the initial shock. So
yeah,
first of all, it's the physical self-care, the self-soothing, to get yourself out of that state of shock. Whether it's having somebody hold you and cuddle you, whether it's going for an energy healing with somebody who you trust, with
mm,
somebody who you already know. Um, and eventually working with a therapist or practitioner to help heal some of that damage
Yeah.
that has been done, but also to know that what happened to you was completely not okay. And it was actually really damaging, no matter how spiritual or enlightened that person is, or no matter how good their testimonials are. Um, and it's also why, I don't know if we can dedicate some of this to green flags as well. Things where if you see things on their marketing or certain things
Yeah.
that are like, yep, I trust this person, there's no sure, because the world of sexuality work, like the world of coaching, it's
Yeah.
unregulated. There are bodies, but there's no legal requirement. And someone can also be part of a professional body and still have shitty behavior. So this is why there are certain things that we think are useful green flags, that
Mm.
if you see them, it's like, okay, this is a good, I can trust this person, this is a good person to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there are. So you could first of all check their background, like watch their website and see if they're honest about their education. Are they
Yeah,
actually educated to do this? Do they have consent for teaching this? Like this is one of the funny things that I see is that, for example, the wheel of consent is about consent and it's taught very often by people who do not have consent to teach it. So can you what's are they trauma informed? Did they do any courses on trauma? Um, are they clear about where they were taught?
can they name their lineage?
Yeah,
Because
are
I
they
think it's,
allowed to do that? Yeah.
and like name I think naming their lineage is really important in
Yeah.
terms of who you trained with. I may not agree with some of those schools you trained with, but at least list them. And or
Hmm.
if you trained with them and you don't agree with their teachings, maybe saying, I trained with this, I take some of that, I don't agree with that anymore.
Yeah.
For me, I would trust
Yeah.
that.
Also, let's see who they worked with. Did
Yeah,
they work with alleged perpetrators or abusers? Did they work with people who are very safe? Um, Also, if they worked with people who are not safe, did they write something about it? Are they open about it? Like I know
yeah,
people who work with very unsafe facilitators and they kind of like erase that part of their history. They keep that hidden. Um, what else? What I find very important is transparency. So, do they have their ethical standards on their website published where you can read them?
yeah,
Like, what are the standards they're holding themselves accountable to? What governing body do they work with? That's another one. And
yeah,
another one is, can you file a complaint and will they listen? Is there any easy way for you to tell them something was off? Is there any easy way for accountability? And
yeah,
do you need to go to that teacher themselves? Or is there a way that you can, for example, that governing body or peers or whoever that you can what's the word that you can go to
mm,
if you cannot, for example, if I did something really hurtful to someone, it might be really hard for that person to come to me. So then
yeah,
is there someone else they could approach
yeah.
when that person will hold me accountable?
And also, do they list or do they say that they either have supervision or mentorship?
Yep.
And I'm aware
Yep.
that for some of these, some people that we know and love, they're not part of a governing body because of the nature of their work.
Yeah,
And
might not
so
exist.
it
Yeah.
doesn't exist because, especially when you're working with touch, if you're a sex worker, if you're working with genital contact, not many governing bodies, very few or none. And especially even if you live, especially if you live in a certain country where there's none available.
Yep.
And but is there some sort of way where it's easy-ish to access that if you felt hurt or something bad has happened that you can complain and there's someone you can go to? And do they mention that they have supervision and mentorship?
Yeah.
Because
Or
it's,
intervision, because supervision may also be hard
yeah,
for whatever reason. But is there
yeah,
any way they are held accountable by other peers and
yeah,
professionals?
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if you're watching this and a sexuality professional thinking, oh, fuck, I don't have that, this is what we can work towards.
Yeah.
Try not to make it as, "Well, very bad. You've done this wrong. You should just quit right now." No, because we're still
Yeah.
learning ourselves. And, I'm thinking I have some ethics on my website. I need to update that because there's certain things that I want to add to my professional code of ethics that I have on my website. And especially when we are teachers and facilitators, we're often the sole business owner and breadwinner. We have limited capacity. So think of this as something to work towards
Yeah.
rather than, oh God, okay, I should just quit right now. And also get support. This conversation is aimed at both the consumer and the professional as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any,
Those are a
yeah.
few. Yeah. You want more?
I'm thinking a slash a red flag, green flag I have personally, I think you'd agree with this, is when in their marketing or in whatever context they make general statements about men and women.
Oh
So
gosh.
all
Oh
men are like this, all women
yeah.
are like this, all women want this, all men want this.
Yeah. But
And
also the spiritual. Oh, maybe you're gonna go there.
no, go on.
I would also say the spiritual version where they would say the masculine does this and the feminine does that, which is often linked to gender, or even if it's not, like it's still a generalization.
Yeah. Or generalization without making certain things clear. Saying, even though I talk about the feminine or the divine feminine, I also acknowledge da 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 da. Something along those lines.
Mm,
We may disagree on that, but I think when people often, for me, a flag word is every time when people say divine masculine, divine feminine, that for me sparks so many connotations as to, okay, this speaks to me of your lineage and your school of thought and how you teach, and
mm.
it promotes gender essentialism basically.
Yeah, and it's very excluding to many people.
Yeah, and also it ends up going down this road that in order to be a woman you must be more feminine, which therefore means this and this, and to be a man you must be more masculine, and that means this and this, rather than, yeah, it can just get really
Yeah,
sticky.
it's not helping. It's not helping
Not
anyone.
helping. No.
No. No, and even pretty traumatizing. I know for myself, I had got the comment in these tantric schools that I was a too masculine woman and I needed to
Mm.
change that. And I needed to wear different clothes and I needed to have different behavior. I needed to sleep with more different men. And there was all these things. And I've
Oh,
tried for years. And I think, yeah, it probably was part of why I'm so, I'm dealing with chronic illness. And I think it's not the reason, but definitely part of it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty traumatizing.
it's interesting because I come from evangelical Christianity, and there's so many crossovers in evangelical Christianity and sacred sexuality in terms of gender roles, gender essentialism. And I see this in women's work and men's work, where, because we go to sexuality work from our wounding, shit hurts, things have gone wrong, we are in pain, we want to overcome a trauma. And when it's in the realm of sexuality, it's often in the realms of love and relationships and sexuality.
Mm,
And often it's you need to be more in your feminine. And you are not healing because you are not in your feminine. And you need to be more in your feminine in order to heal. And then, especially when you're coming from a place of real pain, where, okay, things are really, I'm in pain, things are going wrong. Okay, be more feminine, be more feminine, be more feminine. And the same for men, where you are not healing in whatever way, or you're not having a relationship or having love because you are not in your masculine. So, this is how to be more in your masculine. Okay, be more masculine, be more masculine. It's for some people, the thing is, for some people it works, but for some it
mhm.
doesn't. And it,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's I think it's with more essentialism terms, like now we're using masculine and feminine, but it also can be frequency or whatever.
Oh
That
God.
when you don't, so when you try to be that which they say will make everything better,
Oh God.
and then in your life things go wrong, like this is such a source of self-judgment and self-harm caused by what these teachings bring you.
You just need to raise your frequency. Your frequency is not high enough, and that's why you're suffering.
Yeah,
So,
so we could go like, okay, it's my own fault and I'm suffering now. I'm not good enough. So then we go back to the old limiting belief paradigms of
oh
not being good
God.
enough. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, it's a good point that we bring that up.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel that as we wrap this up, we are talking about ethics and boundaries and safety within the sexuality world, and there are many crossovers with the general wellness and coaching and spirituality world, and there are many crossovers in that. And also, even teachers and facilitators who aren't specific sexuality teachers, there's still those boundary crossings, hitting on students, the all of the stuff that happens within sexuality work also exists in non-specific sexuality
Yeah.
spaces as well.
Yeah.
So how shall we conclude this? Any final thoughts or
Well, maybe with a
reflections?
little hope that these realms, this world is also stunningly beautiful. It's
Mm,
wonderful. There's so much to learn. There's so much to enjoy. And even though a lot goes wrong, there's also a lot going right.
mm.
And I think discussions like these may make it even better.
Yeah, I like, because it can be very disheartening and scary and frustrating to see, for me, and I guess for you, like a field that we love and we're passionate about and we've had our own real healing from and community with, to see it go wrong. There's a real grief and that
Yeah.
feeling of, oh my God, well, maybe I'll just throw out the baby with the bathwater. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, it's more refining that as sexuality work, sexual healing work is still very young, you know, in what we practice today as sexuality work has only been around for like the past, I guess, since the 1960s
Yeah.
ish. I mean, there's
Yeah.
different ish, it's still young.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's still, and especially as society has progressed and our
Yeah.
understanding of gender has progressed, especially in the past few years with the Me Too movement and our understanding of consent. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's saying there is some amazing, awesome stuff within this field. This is how we can make it better and improve on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that more people can have that sexual healing experience where they're hopefully not re traumatized afterwards. Good,
Totally.
good outcome.
Yeah.
Um, so, do you want to share or talk about what links you have? We can put them in the
Yeah.
comments. Also, whatever linky boxes.
Yeah, we'll put in the comments. So I know my name is really hard to pronounce, so I decided to call my business and my website exploringdeeper.com. So that's where you can find things. You can also find the brochure that Rupert, Alison, and I made on their website under Consent and Power. There will be more stuff coming there in the next months. And find me on the socials as Wilrieke Sophia. I'm everywhere. I'm very active.
Awesome. And for me, well, you can follow me on my Facebook. You can also join my Facebook group for now, The Shameless Woman. I say I need to put an asterisk there, Shameless Woman with an asterisk. So it's for also trans women and non binary folk with vulvas. I'm on Instagram, which is at Lucy Lou Rowett. I will share my website link. And also, I would love to hear your reflections and takeaways. So either put them in the comments in whatever places this is shared, or send me and or Wilrieke a private message or an email. We really welcome your reflections, your feedback, any anecdotes or suggestions. I'm really open to hearing what you are experiencing, because it's continuing the conversation around how we can do this work better and make it better so that we can do less harm and
Yes.
basically not fuck people up too much.
Or maybe even
Basically.
maybe even help them.
Oh my God, yeah, help them. Excuse my frank language if you're familiar with my work. I'm very frank sometimes, but this has been really awesome, Wilrieke. Wilrieke,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And I will now close the live stream. So let me
Thank you.
stop the live
Bye.
stream, and I'm going to stop